Go make out with that girl, Joe. Go use your high school level French to impress that blonde beauty. Hurry up and just go. I spotted a stunning blonde woman in the hotel lobby where our high school reunion was taking place. I was told to approach my classmate, who denigrated me for merely having completed high school. Despite my refusals, he persisted in pressuring me to do it. He didn't know, but he seemed to want to chuckle at my uneasiness. Fine, but that girl is my secretary. What am I doing now? She wasn't a stranger. My name is Joe. My younger brother and I were raised in a single-parent home. Even though we grew up together, our early years weren't exactly like that. Due to my brother Mike's lack of physical strength and numerous hospitalizations since he was a young child, our mother was constantly preoccupied with him, which left me alone a lot of the time. During those nights by myself, I felt afraid and alone, but I was unable to express those feelings to my mother because she was working frantically to care for my ailing brother. In any case, I could put up with it a little because I believed it was all for my brother's benefit. But since I was by myself at home and had nothing to do, I felt compelled to relieve my mother of some of the load and automatically started to assist with housework. I was initially just copying what I saw, which led to me bothering my mother and pouring too much detergent to the washing machine, as well as doing a terrible job folding the laundry. I once attempted to iron a shirt and ended up scorching it. Another instance was when I attempted to cook pancakes and ended up spilling the batter, leaving it covered in flour in the sink. I once waited for my mother to return home while crying and clogging the vacuum cleaner. In the end, I even used a knife to cut my finger and bandaged it to get through the ordeal. My mother was so pale when she got home that she hurried me to the hospital. She must have been frightened, and now I ask myself, what on earth was I doing? My mother, however, never truly became upset with me in spite of everything. You were trying to help, weren't you? She responded, understanding my loneliness. Thank you, but please, don't do something risky again. For me, it's enough to know you care. Naturally, while she caressed my head, I was only permitted to apply the techniques she had taught me, and was no longer permitted to use knives or irons. However, I felt like I was truly assisting her as I progressively learned to do more tasks, which made me very happy. My father fled with another woman he had an affair with shortly after my brother was born. I liked him and thought he was a kind father, but ever since he betrayed me and left my mother, I've hated him. In addition to working long hours at her profession, my mother also took care of my brother and watched over me. How hectic and challenging it must have been for her is beyond me. Despite receiving child support from my father, life was difficult due to my brother's medical bills. I wanted to give my family my best effort. I continued to increase the number of tasks I could manage with that resolve. Around this time, I started middle school. A student named Steve and I ended up in the same class. Steve, who is always surrounded by people of all genders and has friends among both upper and lower classmates, was the focal point of our class. Hey, who wants to go to the movies today? Near the station, there's a new location. I've heard that the staff is attractive. My students exclaimed, sounds good, let's go. After he made the suggestion, why not extend an invitation to the entire class? After school, let's all gather in the movie theater beside the station. Before I knew it, a plan had already been made for the entire class to attend a movie. I got past exam papers from a senior. Really? Well done, Steve. Like Steve, it's helpful to have a lot of contacts. I'm grateful, Steve. These will help us avoid failure. Hey, how about we all study together afterward? Well, then stop by my house. I'll show you this new video game I have so we can play it while we take a break. Well, I want to go. Steve was treated like a deity and flaunted his ability to obtain previous exam papers. He enjoys having a good time and is constantly surrounded by people. He is the total opposite of me. Therefore, I find it a little difficult to get along with him. You should come too. No, I don't have money for the cinema. What? It's only the movie theater. I take it that you receive an allowance. Sorry, I really can't afford it. I was initially invited as well, but I never accepted because my family wasn't wealthy. Steve eventually stopped asking me. To be honest, I didn't really care because I found Steve difficult to deal with. But it seems like Steve didn't appreciate my rejection. Hey, doesn't that person only focus on his studies and seeming to be superior to us? In spite of himself, he acts like an introverted school committee nerd. Yes, I understand. He always declines your invitations, appearing arrogant toward us gregarious people. That's absolutely strange. Anyway, put that loner out of your mind, Steve. Today, let's go somewhere. Sounds good. Let's do that. I quickly became an outsider after being classified as an introvert. It wasn't just me, though. There were also a number of others. It seems that several of the students were unable to keep up with the energy and atmosphere, and they were all unavoidably classified as introverts. Our class soon appeared to be divided into introverts and extroverts. Ironically, Steve and I ended ourselves in the same class for all 3 years, even though we had hoped that our classrooms would change as we advanced through the grades. By 9th grade, we were expected to lead all school activities and mentor the younger pupils. Steve was ecstatic to be able to plan events and be the focus of attention in his last year because he enjoyed festivals and events. Everyone, what should we do for the school festival? We can't do food and drink like high schoolers, so why not just stick with a safe exhibition again this year? Not at all. We ought to do something distinctive since we have the stage. What about a play? It will undoubtedly spice things up and be enjoyable. Steve got the conversation off to a great start, but it was sort of upsetting to listen to him since it appeared like all he wanted was to stand out and create noise. Well, it will take a lot of time on the day and be difficult to rehearse if we do a play. Perhaps an exhibition would be more appropriate. This is only suggested by someone in the class, but Steve responds, "What? We were only beginning to explore the concept of a play. Do you have an issue with that?" "No, not really." "Well, if you are unable to keep up, that's okay. You're simply getting in the way. Let's just enjoy ourselves with those that can." Steve's play idea is more about mocking someone and mimicking a TV comedy program than it is about presenting a tale. It will undoubtedly be a bad imitation and not very amusing. When inside jokes fail to elicit laughter, they will just heighten the mood. At first, those who supported Steve's concept began to progressively respond, "Yeah, that sounds like fun, I suppose. Won't it be thrilling?" Although it seems too late to back out now, it will undoubtedly be interesting. Steve was on a roll and they were a little hesitant, so everyone was sweating anxiously. Then someone said, "Steve." "What's up, Mr. Anderson?" "The play you made? It doesn't really pique my curiosity. What do you find humorous about this?" "What? What are you discussing?" Steve inquired. Looking around, our class teacher, Mr. Anderson, remarked, "It appears like very few people are truly into this play. Do you know that?" "Ha. Obviously, having fun is vital, but you're not the only one attending this festival. We all work together to build it. Everyone must find it enjoyable and agreeable. You don't show consideration for other people when you solely think about your own enjoyment." He counseled the agitated Steve. "A true leader is one who can take into account everyone's opinions. Why is the sermon going on? Put an end to it." At first, Steve responded defiantly, but he was surprised that no one was standing by him at that time. "Absolutely fantastic. Okay, then you people put on a dull exhibition." He yelled back, "I'm not taking part," and jumped out of the room. While several kids anxiously followed him, Mr. Anderson's remarks touched me. Steve didn't end up taking the lead. I took charge as the class representative, heard everyone's thoughts, and we decided on a safe exhibition that was a huge success. The day of the high school admission tests then arrived. "Is Mike?" "Yes, I will be there immediately." I found out that Mike's condition had abruptly gotten worse when I heard my mother on the phone, her voice full of concern. She instructed me to continue with my exam, but I was unable to concentrate and ultimately forfeited. I hurried to the hospital and stood outside the operating room for hours. Mike was able to survive because of the doctor's efforts. But I had no other choice because I had only applied to one public high school. Steve discovered me after learning about this and gave me a sarcastic laugh. "Are you a straight-A student taking a year off before high school? That's just wonderful, haha. Instead of going to the hospital, you need to have gone to the exam. In any case, there was nothing you could do. Man, that's plain dumb. You're very funny. All of the emotions I had suppressed suddenly erupted upon hearing this. Is it enjoyable for you? I want to know if you like making fun of people all the time. Enough of demeaning people. In a fit of shock and rage, I suddenly felt the want to seize Steve and strike him. However, Mr. Anderson abruptly stopped me and led me into a different room. You're joking. You will not escape punishment for this. Steve's yells continued for a long time. Mr. Anderson listened to my narrative in silence. He wept and showed empathy for my previous hardships. It must have been difficult. Did you not feel lonely? I felt a little relieved to see him crying. Did I do something wrong? The exam wasn't as crucial as Mike's health. I was unable to remain still after learning that his situation had gotten worse. The test seemed so unimportant. You don't regret it, though. You simply don't feel resolved, do you? With kindness, Mr. Anderson said. He grinned at me as I nodded. That kind of feeling is common. But it wasn't a mistake to put Mike before the test. Most likely, your concern about Mike would have kept you from giving it your all if you had chosen to take the test. Remember, you can always reach out to me when times are tough. Mr. Anderson continued. I support you. Everything will work out. He then gave me his phone number and address. Since I didn't live in a household where I could request a cell phone, I had to communicate with Mr. Anderson via letters. In order to make sure I never forgot our correspondence, I made it a point to write to him anytime something occurred. Additionally, Mr. Anderson consistently returned well-considered answers. Furthermore, he consistently sent Christmas cards and midsummer wishes. 15 years have passed since my middle school graduation. Our 9th grade class received an invitation to a class reunion. I wasn't really excited when I looked at the invitation, but the statement that Mr. Anderson, our former teacher, is also expected to attend convinced me to go. The reunion was held that day at a hotel dining hall. Hey Joe, it's been a while. Joe, the class representative, is here. Hasn't it been a long time? A long time indeed. How are things going for everyone? Joe, you also look fantastic. It was more fun than I had anticipated to converse with my classmates. I was the class representative back then, and everyone recognized me. We had a great time remembering those times. As we conversed and exchanged current life updates, I observed that one group in particular appeared to be really animated. They're having quite the time. Jay, that's Steve's group. Oh, I see. Steve appeared to be the focal point of that bunch. The bits of discussion I overheard indicated they were still as boisterous and immature as they had been in middle school. I considered avoiding them, but Steve smirked as he walked up, and I unintentionally looked him in the eye. I forced myself not to run and turn to him. Hey, is that you, Joe? Yeah, it is. I was aware of it. Joe, the high school dropout, is here. Why is the suit there? It's not at all your style. It appears that you're dressing up, which is amusing. You look better in more casual clothing, so you should stay with that. His instant rudeness annoyed me, so I retorted, Unfortunately, I have work after this. He then exclaimed, What? Dropped out of high school and working in a suit? Don't put on airs, ha. You work for a bad company. What sort of workaholic are you? Oh, manual labor? Typical of a dropout, only certain types of companies are able to hire them. Me, I'm a stockbroker, which is the greatest job and something to boast about to everyone. I answered, Oh, that's great, because everything Steve said was terrible. Well, I have to leave, he said, and appeared to run away. However, he yelled, Hold on. How does working as a dropout feel? Give me specifics. I'll refer to it in the future. Please, Joe, hurry up. Are you upset with me for bringing up the dropout issue? All right, I apologize. Let's have a conversation. Aren't we friends? After all, it's a reunion. Don't attempt to flee. That's brave of you. But hold on, I'm tolerant, so I'll overlook it. Come on, let's stop running and get a drink. Steve started showing up out of the blue to annoy me wherever I went throughout the reunion. Please, just stop. He simply smiled and continued to follow me despite my requests for him to stop. I was worried that Mr. Anderson hadn't arrived yet, as the reunion was coming to a close. Was he going to be late? Had something occurred? I decided to leave the event to use the restroom, but Steve followed me once more. How are you? Are you already leaving? No, just going to the bathroom. To the restroom. Okay, I'll accompany you. I sigh. I saw a blonde woman sitting on a sofa in the lobby as I was grudgingly making my way to the restroom, thinking how incredibly annoying this was becoming. What a stunning blonde woman. She might be a visitor staying here, Steve exclaimed. She's really gorgeous, becoming ecstatic by himself. After that, he turned to face me and said, "Hey, Joe, you go hit on her." What? Why not? Come on, man. Try picking up that blonde beauty with your high school level French. Steve smirked as he walked toward me, holding his phone. He obviously planned to record me clumsily conversing with the woman in bad French, being quickly turned down, and then sharing the footage to make fun of me in front of everyone. I was too horrified to speak up because I was so disgusted and shocked by his behavior, which had not altered since middle school. Sorry, but that's impossible. Steve seized my arm with all of his strength as I attempted to pass him on my way to the restroom, saying, "Come on, just do it. Act quickly." With a sigh, I responded, "Fine, but that woman is actually my secretary," and requested Steve to release my arm. Incredulous, he replied, "What? What topic are you discussing? Have you gone insane?" The woman then approached us with grace as if she had seen us. Immediately tensing up, Steve shoved me once more and said, "Come on, stop talking nonsense and go talk to her." "You're sooner than anticipated, Mr. Parker. Are you finished already?" she inquired. She asked me a question that surprised Steve. "It may require a bit more time. The teacher I was hoping to meet has not yet shown up. Are you still able to handle time, Ellie?" Avoiding boredom. "Yes, I'm all right. I simply arrived early. I'll have some coffee and wait." "Thanks, that's a relief. Hold on a minute. What's happening, Joe? Do you really know this stunning woman?" "Ha, I told you so." "Not at all. That was not heard by me." "Well, I did say it just a moment ago." Steve shifted his confused gaze between us. My secretary, Ellie, likewise cocked her head, curious to hear what was being said. "Oh, is that you, Joe? Joe?" Then a man showed up. "Mr. Anderson? Mr. Anderson. You're Steve, aren't you? It's been a while." Steve mumbled, "It's been a while." "It was our 9th grade teacher, Mr. Anderson." "Yes, indeed. I'm happy to see you both, Joe in particular. I was honestly concerned that you wouldn't make it today because I had heard from your letters that you had been to France." France. At what Mr. Anderson said, Steve cocked his head. "Yeah, I didn't go to a high school in the U.S., but right after that, I moved to France and attended high school there." "What?" Confused, Steve asked. "I continued with college there too, and now I work while traveling between America and France." "What does that mean?" "Just after I finished middle school, my mother got married again. He was a famous cardiologist and my brother Mike's primary care physician. My stepfather helped us travel to France for surgery because Mike had a weak heart. I moved there with my mother, and we made it our home. I went there for high school before enrolling in a famous institution. I founded a firm during my time in college, and it has since gone on to become a significant enterprise with more than 100 workers." "What?" "Launching a company while still a student. Are you not aware that students frequently launch their own firms in such universities? There I met my girlfriend, with whom I co-founded the company. I gave my business card to Steve. As a stockbroker, Steve couldn't have been oblivious that the company name on it was one that was publicly listed. Furthermore, because of its impressive performance, it has recently gained popularity as a stock." "No way." Steve recognized the business, but he couldn't think of anything to say. "It's true that I didn't go to high school in America, but that is irrelevant in the corporate world. Your educational background is irrelevant to anyone. A president is a president regardless of whether they have completed college, high school, or middle school. You are evaluated based on your work." Steve's head was bent as he stood there speechless. "Why? Why do you constantly come before me?" Weakly, Steve mumbled, I've hated you since I was in middle school. Like you, I grew up without a father and in a single-parent household. However, my mother was the type that switched boyfriends every few months, in contrast to your family. I didn't feel like I belonged at our house because there were constantly outsiders staying there. I was jealous of you since I tried not to go home after spending nights out. Your family was close and supportive despite your brother's illness. Steve. Teachers trusted you since you were the class spokesperson and consistently received higher grades. On the other hand, I was merely circling around in an attempt to hide my personal life and was ultimately called frivolous. Ever since, I've been terrified of being betrayed. I used mocking you as an outlet for my annoyance. I worked hard for my grades, and the only reason I was chosen as the class representative was because no one else offered. Being ridiculed isn't a valid reason for your insecurity, and living a sincere life builds trust. Yes, I am aware. I realized I had done something irreparable when you became upset with me for the first time after I made fun of you for not attending high school. However, it was too late to offer an apology at that point. If you had come today, I would have apologized, but seeing you so joyful made me understand how meaningless my life has been, which just infuriated me. I was limited to holding my head in my hands. Although there may be some sympathy for Steve's family circumstances, everything else was, in all honesty, the product of his own behavior. For a long period, his actions had truly caused me pain and hurt. I felt the same way about Steve, who claimed to be envious of me. With pals all around him and a continual stream of smiles and laughing, he was the life of the class. That was something I frequently envied. On the other hand, I felt more alone than other people, even though I did feel my mother's affection. I was classified as serious since I was inherently socially awkward. Being the class representative was never my goal. Steve was the one who forced the label of introvert onto me. He gave me a startled expression when I said this. As a child, I repressed my emotions to divert my attention from the loneliness. I was never really the serious sort by nature. That's why I always envied you, Steve, being bright and the center of attention. Why? Why didn't you speak up sooner? Why would I? Nor did you ever say anything to me. That's accurate, but I was unaware of your feelings. You never showed emotion. I don't have to hide my emotions from others just because I don't display them on my face. It's common for me to have both happy and terrible moments. Yes, I suppose so. I told myself that it was okay to do or say anything to you since I always thought you looked fine. I sincerely apologize. I was mistaken. I should take responsibility for my constant disregard for you and my failure to vocalize my distress. I should have been more explicit about how I felt. I apologize as well. We both looked down and apologized to each other after 15 years. Then Mr. Anderson appeared before us. Compared to previous times, you two have matured greatly. It's excellent that you recognize your errors on your own, Steve. Even though it can be difficult to admit when you were mistaken, Joe was nonetheless harmed. You ought to think carefully about that. Yes, Joe, you expressed your feelings that day rather than only watching events unfold. It made me really delighted. It's great that you can own your mistakes, even in the midst of these unresolved emotions. Yes, we may not get along with a lot of individuals in life. Actually, the majority may be that way. However, in order to survive, we occasionally need to comprehend one another. Steve and Joe are both valuable students in my opinion. The happiness of every student I've worked with, not just you two, is my delight. Today, a burden in your hearts has been lifted by you two. That also brings me great joy. Both of you are excellent students who are considerate. You have my admiration. I laughed uncontrollably, almost too flattered. Steve appeared to agree, and Ellie grinned warmly as she observed us. Joe, over here. Hey, Steve. I apologize for keeping you waiting. No, I also just arrived here. You know it's takeout? Yeah, thanks. Somehow, Steve and I began staying in touch after that reunion. Our talks were difficult at first and didn't last very long, but now we can converse like friends and even go out for drinks. We frequently narrate tales from our history. He told me how he got a position at a big securities business, became independent after high school, and received college scholarships. It must have been tough getting into a big securities firm. It was indeed. I prepared extensively and worried about entry sheets for days. That's amazing. Steve dismissed it with a laugh, but I appreciated his attempt. No, I'd nothing in comparison to you. You had difficulties abroad, correct? Nothing I've ever done compares to your perseverance and conviction in launching a business while still a student. We now get together around once a week after we began inviting one another out more frequently. As a result, we have discussed topics we never would have thought to bring up in middle school. Romance discourse is one example of such a topic. A proposal? Yes, Ellie and I have been together for years, but our business relationship has endured for even longer. I also reasoned that since she's French, perhaps something more romantic would be suitable. Since the business was moving forward, I didn't want to keep her waiting any longer, but I overanalyzed the situation and was unable to act. I can't believe she chose you. Hey, what's that supposed to mean? Just kidding, sorry. I told Steve that I wanted to ask Ellie to marry me. Despite his quips, he paid attention and assisted me in researching topics such as nighttime dining options and the significance of a bouquet's rose count. Steve screamed and exulted as though it were his own happy moment when my proposal was accepted, and we chose to tie the knot, saying, "Congratulations! I'm very pleased for you." Steve hasn't said anything sarcastic since. He has softened his manner and seems to be gaining popularity after reevaluating his character and behavior in both his personal and professional lives. He has acknowledged that his mother's actions caused him severe trauma, which makes it difficult for him to trust women. Marriage seems like a distant dream for me. But hey, I'm totally content with my life as it is now. It was refreshing to see Steve talk with such ease. Marriage, in my opinion, is not everything, but I do hope that his emotional scars get somewhat better. Naturally, Mr. Anderson and Steve were among the visitors shortly after my marriage to Ellie. Congratulations. Be joyful. Thank you. When everything calms down, let's get together for a drink. I'll contact you. Sure, I'll contact you too. Mr. Anderson looked happy as we all laughed together. I never thought I would understand Steve this well in middle school. If people open up, they might be able to comprehend one another even in the most intense disputes. Despite being from different nations and histories, Ellie and I have bonded like family. I used to hate Steve, but now I'm good friends with him. Maintaining communication and avoiding presumptions are essential in both personal and professional life. I'm going to live by this lesson from now on.